I want to show you one example here of a modern comic book that I literally just sold for $300. You know, if there's one theme that I've heard over and over throughout the years from a lot of people in the reselling community, is that by and large, they just can't get into reselling comic books. A lot of people tell me that that's because they just didn't grow up with them. They weren't really interested in them, besides maybe a few key characters, and that's it. And that now things have just become really complicated and overwhelming, so that if they do come across a short box of comic books like this at a garage sale, they might not even bother to take the lid off to look inside. Or if they do look inside and start skimming through the comic books, it's very likely that they would pass up things of value because they're just not exactly sure what to look for, besides some things that might be very, very obvious. And I want to show you one example here of a modern comic book that I literally just sold for $300. I actually obtained this for only 15 cents as part of a comic book collection buyout that I did. And for those of you who watch my channel for a while, you know that that's something that I do. So I like to get these big bulk deals. So this is the back of the comic book, and I'm going to gently take this out and I'm going to show you the front of the comic book so you see what this is, and that is none other than Young Avengers #1, published by Marvel in 2005. Now, the publication date is important, and that's one of the reasons that a lot of people have passed this up, because most people who just aren't into comic books have an assumption that the only valuable comic books are the ones that are really old, and that these modern ones, there's no way you're going to find one that's worth $300, especially if it's not graded. So this is a raw comic book. It's not graded, not in a slab or anything like that. So that's one reason that it would be missed. The other reason that it would be missed is that these characters here are not ones that the general public would identify with. So we're not talking about Incredible Hulk or Captain America or anything like that. We're talking about a new set of characters. So let's take a deeper dive into the Avengers in general. Then we'll get into the Young Avengers, and we'll talk about exactly why this comic sold for $300. The Avengers was first published in 1963. This is the first issue right here. Now, if you ever found one, you would definitely want to get it graded, because here's two examples of a 7.0, which is fine to very fine condition, graded by CGC, selling for $15,500 on eBay. Now, on the front cover, we have none other than the mighty Thor himself. We also have the one and only Incredible Hulk. We also have Ant-Man there, and next to him is the Wasp. Now, this is the original Iron Man, which is different from how he currently looks and what we're all used to. Check it out again. There is the original Iron Man. Now, Captain America did not come about in the Avengers until issue number 4. And as you can see here, that issue recently sold for $8,000 when graded as an 8.0, which is very fine condition by CGC. All right, so we're going to take a deeper dive into this front cover. I'm going to show you a very easy way to remember these characters by relating them to comic characters who almost everybody is familiar with. So we're going to start here with Patriot. Patriot's real name is Eli Bradley, in case you ever hear that. Now, the name's very simple to remember because he's wearing patriotic colors. You can see here we've got red, white, and blue, and we've got a white patriotic star in the middle of his hood. Now, he does bear a resemblance to the original Captain America, who also has a patriotic outfit, but they are different characters. Now, the Captain America storyline is complicated in comic books, But for now, I just want to show you there is a relationship to the characters. Now, this character right here is actually a relative of the first African-American Captain America. Now, we're going to go right over here, and you're going to see a character that bears a resemblance to the original Incredible Hulk, who I mentioned earlier. Now, this is not the Incredible Hulk, but his name is similar. He's also known as Hulkling. In the comic, his real name is Teddy Altman. So now we're going to move over to this one here. This one, you need to really focus in on that winged helmet over there. That's really the key. Because who do we know in comics who wears a winged helmet? Well, this guy over here. Now, you might not read the Thor comic books, but you may have seen the Thor movie. I know a lot of the ladies watching are big Thor fans from watching the movies. So you see here, we have a resemblance with that winged helmet. And from the movies, you might remember, Thor is from Asgard. Well, so is he, and his name is Asgardian. In the comic book, his real name is Billy Kaplan. Now, over here, we have Iron Lad. Now, who does Iron Lad look like? Well, he looks pretty close to Iron Man. So Iron Man, Iron Lad. Now, you will sometimes hear him referred to by his real name, which is Nathaniel Richards. So just want to make sure you're familiar with both types of names in case you ever hear him or see him in comics. Now, another thing that adds to the value of Young Avengers 1 is this last page right here in which he says his name to be Kang. That's a reference to Kang the Conqueror. He is actually an adolescent version of Kang, and anything related to Kang right now is blowing up in value. Here you could see the number 8 issue of Avengers, which is the first appearance of Kang, sold for $8,500. Kang is going to be playing an increasingly important role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. All right, now first appearances in comic books is one variable that plays an important role in determining value. But this is not only the first appearance of these 4 characters in comics, it's also the first appearance of another very important character who is not seen on the front cover. So we're going to have to open the comic book gently to figure out who that is. And it's none other than this person named Kate. That's a reference to Kate Bishop. Kate Bishop is the 3rd person to take on the role of Hawkeye. So you might be familiar with the traditional Hawkeye character from the Avengers movies, but Kate is the first female character to take on the Hawkeye role. And she is going to be playing an increasingly important part in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, if you look at the top left corner of the comic, you're going to see the name Alan Heinberg. That's important because this is the first time that writer Alan Heinberg wrote a professional comic book. He later went on to write the movie Wonder Woman 2017. All right, so now we're going to talk about some comps specific to Young Avengers #1. As a treat, if you stay to the end, I'm going to show you a near $4,000 comp related to that issue. In addition to that, we're going to talk about comic book grading. We're going to talk about condition, and I'm going to show you how I ship a comic book that sells for $300. All right, now here you can see a near mint to mint graded copy of Young Avengers #1 that's sold for $1,200, graded by CGC. Notice I said near mint to mint. It's a 9.8. That's what everybody wants for a modern graded comic. They don't want anything less than that usually. So look at the drop off when we go to 9.6, $550. When we go to a 9.4, $500. When we go to a 9.2, $339. So it's drastic. So for an issue like this, unless I know it's going to get a 9.8 and I have to be 100% sure, in this case I wasn't because there were some minor flaws, I'm not going to wait a year to send it off to CGC plus the expenses that are involved. It's just not worth the difference. I'd rather just sell it for the $300. There are some other versions of Young Avengers #1 out there. This one with the light background is known as the director's cut because there are some additional notes about the comic inside. This one, graded as a 9.8 by CGC, sold for right around $700. Ungraded, the most you're going to get for it right now is about $200. All right, now be careful of this one, folks, because in 2006, Toy Biz released a Young Avengers box set, and inside of it is a reprint of the Young Avengers #1 comic book. You could see it here. It's only going to sell for as high as around $100 now. You could tell it's a reprint because on the bottom right, it's going to say not for resale. The one that I sold for $300 has a UPC code on the bottom right, and it says direct edition on it. Now, one of the other things that really helped me get the price out of this comic book that I did had to do with the condition of the book. In my opinion, this comic is in near mint condition. Now, that's a pretty tough standard to meet, and you really have to look the comic book over very thoroughly, inside and out. You have to make sure that there are no creases, especially along the spine. You have to make sure that there's no indentations, that there are no rips or tears or color loss. There's so many factors that you have to look at. And I was just asked tonight on my live show, what is the best way to try to learn grading comic books? And by far and away, the best way to learn that is to pick up a copy of this book. This is Overstreet's Guide to Grading Comic Books. This is the newest edition, the 6th edition. I have a link to it in the description section. It's an Amazon affiliate link. If anyone gets it through there, it does help the channel out. But I've talked about this forever. This is something that should be on every comic seller's and collector's bookshelf. The great thing about it is that when you flip it over, you're going to get different criteria for each grade set. So for example, you could see here, it talks about fine plus condition, and it gives all the verbal descriptions and key bullet points of things to look for. But what's even cooler than that is it gives numerous examples of different comic books and the types of flaws that are occurring to give it the grade that it's giving. And they don't just give 1 or 2 examples, they give many examples per grade so that, by looking at it and studying it over time, you could really get familiar with the different grading terms. And that's very, very, very important. So I highly recommend picking up a copy of this book. Okay, so the next question that I get asked a lot is, how do I ship a comic book that's this valuable and prevent it from getting damaged? Now I have all the confidence in the world that I could use the same exact method shipping this comic book as I would shipping a lower priced comic book using my cardboard sandwich method inside of a clasp envelope. Now, a lot of people kind of shudder at that when they hear that, but just go look at my feedback for shipping comic books. I use very, very strong cardboard that I get from the grocery store. You could see here, I use the one from Wegmans bread boxes. These things are amazing. You're looking for corrugated cardboard here that's not going to bend easily. That really helps. But I can tell you as a comic book collector, and I know the clientele that I'm dealing with, the anxiety that happens about this, they want this type of book to be shipped in a box. So, okay, so we'll do it in a box. So make sure that you tape the middle of the comic book in all 4 areas to the outside of the cardboard and leave a little bit of protection zone around it. So that's going to prevent the comic from slipping outwards and having any kind of overhang. You don't want any kind of damage like that to happen to it. So this protects it. And then you just take another piece and layer it right on top. And then you just start putting some tape around that as well. Now this would be sufficient for most comic books, but for an expensive one like this, if you want to take a little bit of extra care, then what you do is you take another layer and you take another layer, and now you've got it extra protected. So again, just take a little piece of tape here, tape the sides just to make it nice and stationary. And then what you could do is take your tape gun and just tape all around it and make it nice and secure. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this envelope and put it inside of this 15 by 12 by 4 box. Now this is not an eBay box, it's a box that I get on Amazon in bulk. So I'll put a link to it in the description section as well. It's nice and strong and sturdy and has great edge crush protection. So what I like to do just to give extra protection to the bottom is that I will take a piece of cardboard, cut it out and slip it in underneath and then put some tape on top of it just to hold it down. I like to have additional protection here. So what I'll also do is I will take some large bubble wrap and I will layer that on the bottom and then I will fold it over like that and then I will gently nestle. I love saying that. I'm gonna gently nestle this book right on top. I love to nestle my comic books. So now it's sitting on here really nice and I'm gonna take some extra large bubble wrap and I'm gonna nestle it right on top. That primetime treasure hunter, he really loves to nestle things. Will you get back to painting that waterfall? Okay, now you can see here that I wrapped this in another layer of bubble wrap. And the issue is that even after doing that, you're still gonna have these little areas here that could cause a potential problem if the book gets bashed up against the side of it. So this is where the much derided packing peanut comes in very helpful. A lot of people can't stand these things, but they are very helpful for fitting into these little grooves here. And they are actually a standard that's used by many comic auction companies, for example, for doing just something like this. So I'm gonna just layer that all around and then we don't have to worry at all about this bashing against the side. All right, so now that we have this in place, this is not going to move around and we're just going to layer in some air cushion pillows up top and then just close it up and seal it off. If you need to use a couple extra pieces here and there just to make sure you got everything nice and snug, then just do whatever you need to the custom size of your box. As a side note though, just be careful not to overstuff the box because then you could actually crush the comic and you definitely want to avoid that. All right, so once it's taped up, you got to give it the good old shake test and just make sure nothing's moving around in there. If you do hear some movement, then go back in and do some readjustments. But once you don't hear any noise, you are good to go. This is going to go out priority mail with insurance on it. And it's up to you whether or not you want to do signature confirmation. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. eBay will force you to do it once it gets to a certain monetary value. So again, that's just a personal decision there. All right, we're gonna go to that bonus item in just a moment, but before we do, make sure you check out the description section and the comment section for a link to Stephanie's eBay store at LMB Outlet. She's got about 800 items there. It's an awesome store. Check it out, support her, tell her that Primetime sent you, and click that join button to see about all the perks that membership has to offer to this channel. Let's get to that bonus item. Don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe. Well, here you go, because you just never know. In 2005, some people who went to the Wizard World Comic Convention were able to secure one of 285 Young Avengers #1 copies. This one is graded by CGC as a 9.5, which is a grade they don't even give anymore, which makes it even more rare. These will sell for up to $3,500. Last point, everyone, the hype and speculation about the Young Avengers coming together in one ensemble movie in the future is helping to jump up the price on this book significantly. And if it ever does come out, it's going to go up even more.